folks. Good morning, everybody, and get ready to see the Attorney General Jeff Sessions in the hot seat. We will see Republicans this morning pressing for answers on James Comey's handling of the Clinton email investigation. No, that story is not over, folks. And we will likely see Democrats want answers on Russia. As we say good morning, get ready for this. I'm Bill Hemmer, live here in America's Newsroom. Off we get running here. Sandra, good morning.
Good morning to you, Bill. I'm Sandra Smith. The Attorney General's first Capitol Hill appearance since June comes amid the discovery of new FBI documents that prove former Director James Comey had begun drafting his exoneration of Hillary Clinton before the email investigation had wrapped up. President Trump seizing on that news, tweeting, "Wow, FBI confirms report that James Comey drafted letter exonerating crooked Hillary Clinton long before investigation was complete." Many people not interviewed, including Clinton herself. Comey stated under oath that he didn't do this. Obviously a fix. Where is Justice Department?
How about that for a setup? All this happening as we learn more about that now infamous meeting on the tarmac in Arizona between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton. And all of it raising new questions about Comey's account of his own timeline. Here's the House Oversight Committee Chair Trey Gowdy saying that he needs more answers on all of that.
The chronology does not add up. His answers have been all over the map to both the Intelligence Committee and the clip you just played from Oversight. So we need to talk to him again.
Well, Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge monitoring that hearing, beginning our coverage live in Washington. And Catherine, good morning there.
Well, thank you, Bill, and good morning. This is the first time the Attorney General Jeff Sessions has been on Capitol Hill since that summer testimony where he said in his opening statement that he did not have conversations with the Russians, coordinate with the Russians, or in any way collude with the Russians in an effort to help then candidate Trump during the 2016 election. You can see the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room. No one's there at the moment, but we expect them to start filling those seats in the next half hour for that hearing that will begin within an hour's time. The Senate Judiciary Committee has a number of questions for the Attorney General, specifically on the Russia investigation. There's a certain amount of frustration with the Justice Department and particularly with the FBI about its unwillingness to provide records to Congress that really outline the relationship the FBI had with the company that was behind the Trump dossier, Fusion GPS. We put this issue to Senator Feinstein, the ranking Democrat on the committee, recently.
We're in a little logjam right now, but I hope we can break it and get what we need, which are subpoenas to get some documents right now.
In addition, some of the things you should be looking for this morning include questions about the travel ban as well as DACA bill.
There have been some developments now on the House side. What can you tell us about that part of the story?
Well, Bill, this part of the story has been moving very rapidly since really last evening. What we understand is that two members of the firm Fusion GPS, this is the opposition research firm that commissioned the anti-Trump unverified dossier, will be appearing before the House Intelligence Committee in a closed session about an hour from now. You can see there Glenn Simpson. He is the leader of Fusion GPS. We're expecting two of his colleagues, Peter Fritsch as well as Thomas Catan, to take the fifth before the House Intelligence Committee. They told the committee at the end of last week in a 17-page letter that they would exercise their Fifth Amendment rights if they were forced to appear today, and they did receive a subpoena to appear. But this raises a host of questions about why they're resisting providing information to Congress about a document which really was one of the catalysts to the Russia investigation last year, Bill.
All right. No shortage of information to follow. Catherine, thank you. Back in touch with you next hour, Catherine, live in D.C.
Meanwhile, Republicans pressing forward on tax reform. A number of key senators, including John McCain, now backing a crucial budget resolution needed to get that ball rolling. President Trump looking to seize on that momentum while speaking at the Heritage Foundation last night.
To save Americans precious time and money, we're also simplifying the tax code. Under our framework, the vast majority of families will be able to file their taxes on a single sheet of paper. The other pillar of our tax plan is reducing our crushing business tax so that we can restore America's competitive edge. It's a tremendous reduction from what it is, and I will tell you, it's the biggest reduction in taxes in the history of this country.
Peter Ducey's live on Capitol Hill. Peter, does the GOP have the votes to pass a budget so that they can move forward and move on to tax reform?
They're closer now, Sandra, since Senator Thad Cochran has returned to Washington after battling an illness back home in Mississippi, and now that Senator John McCain says that he plans to vote yes. Of course, nobody really knew what McCain was going to do. He was the critical no vote the last time that the GOP tried to overhaul the health care system, but there is a problem right now in Senator Rand Paul. He says that he is a no for now because he thinks McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham are asking for too big an increase in military spending.
Lindsey Graham wouldn't know a conservative if he met one. All right, he's never been a conservative. He's probably a big part of why we have such a massive debt in this country, because he is unwilling and unable to be restrained at all on the money he throws at the military.
That's a very strong charge that Senator Graham says he strongly disagrees with.
I think Senator Paul is trying to find a way to vote no, and he always does. The president wants to spend more on defense. I want to spend more on defense. Every military leader says we need to build up the Defense Department in light of the threats we face.
But while Republicans are fighting amongst themselves here in the upper chamber, one liberal Democratic Senator, Sherrod Brown from Ohio, just came out a few hours ago to say that he may vote yes on a potential tax reform package if it helps working families and if it keeps American companies acting patriotically.
Well, I want to see it. I mean, I don't know what's going to exactly be in it, but those are the two major things that would get, I think, a bunch of Democrats to vote yes. But if this is going to be sort of Mitch McConnell writing this bill in the back room and trying to jam it through with 50 votes, that's not how we should legislate. That's not what the country wants.
The plan is to try to pass this budget, which then lets them move on to tax reform tomorrow. Sandra.
How are Republicans planning to sell the New Deal, Peter, to extend Obamacare subsidies?
One Republican senator that I've spoken to, Sandra, says that if they want to sell this Obamacare extension, they have to stress that it is just temporary. It is not forever, that the feds are going to keep paying certain insurance companies to offer certain Obamacare plans on the exchanges. But if they do not stress that it is temporary only, this extension of these payments, then it's going to be a tough sell, not only in the Senate, but in the House as well. Sandra.
Yeah, busy day there indeed. Peter Ducey, thank you.
For more on all this now, Daniel Hopper, contributing editor, Washington Free Beacon. Daniel, how you doing? Good morning to you. I'm thinking Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul need to play golf together. Perhaps that's what brings us together. Rand Paul responding to some of the back and forth. He said the following.
The budget vote to me is a symbol and a guidepost as to what we are as a party and what we stand for. And the people like McCain and Graham who parade as conservatives but are not really conservative, they need to be called out because they are bankrupting our country.
Where's this going, Daniel?
Well, we're at this really amazing moment, right? Republicans have the presidency, obviously. They have the House of Representatives and they have the Senate, and yet they can't get anything done. They're too busy at war with each other and not able to get anything done. We saw this on Obamacare. We've seen this since President Trump has taken office, really. And the question is can they come together for tax cuts? Can they come together for tax reform? Or will they fight to the death until they just can't get anything done?
That is the essential question, isn't it? Can you govern with a majority? That answer has not been complete yet, Daniel.
Right, and so far the answer is no, they haven't been able to. And really, of course, Rand Paul's grievances are what they are, and so are Lindsey Graham's and John McCain's. And can they come together and actually do something constructive? Can they let the imperfect, are they going to continue to let the imperfect be the enemy of the good and not get anything done? That's, I think, the key question here, and it remains to be seen, really. But I think President Trump, is trying to say, hey, listen, we can fight about this at other times. There will be an election in 2018. We can determine who to support later on. But for now, let's try to come together and do something. And I think that's a different approach than we've seen in the past, and perhaps it will yield different results.
Well, Rand Paul's going to make the case you got to spend less money overseas, and John McCain's going to say you have to spend more in defense spending when you consider the outlays of the military now. With regard to Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, at 10 a.m., 50 minutes from now, 5-0, does he move the ball on any of these issues? The Samantha Power question, the James Comey question, the Russia question, any of that, Daniel?
So I would expect him to say, you know, in the past he said he's recused himself, so therefore he's not going to be talking about issues related to the campaign. I expect him to use that line frequently today. There will be some push to try to get him to go further. I don't really see it. I see it from his point of view. It makes sense to just stay out, let the processes take over and conclude on their own as they would naturally instead of getting involved. I don't really see what he has to gain by getting involved.
Can he sidestep every question on Russia because he's recused himself?
I think he can do the majority of them. And listen, he of course has been under a lot of pressure himself for some meetings that he failed to disclose. So he doesn't, I don't think, want to get bogged down on this. This is an issue that the president has been upset with him about for other issues that Democrats have been upset about. So I think for him, he'd rather talk about anything else but this. I don't think it really helps him in his place.
Daniel, thank you. Daniel Hopper setting the table for us there in Washington. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bill.
I kind of like the idea of Rand Paul and Lindsey Graham playing golf.
It sounds good in concept.
There's a precedent that's been established here, Sandra, and maybe, yeah, in concept.
Does anything really get done on those golf courses, Bill? Lots of chatter, at least, right?
A lot of fun, too. Yeah.
All right, well, we saw a vintage President Trump last night.
Our great American flag should be treated with reverence and respect, and that young Americans should be taught to love our country, honor our anthem, and proudly recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Why the president went off script when talking up the new tax plan and the economy.
Also, last we heard, he had disappeared, was set for 5 national interviews. They did not happen. Now, the security guard at the center of the Vegas shooting has finally turned up and is now breaking his silence. What he's saying in his first interview and where that's happening. Plus.
Meanwhile, we are awaiting Attorney General Jeff Sessions on Capitol Hill right now. All this as a new report surfaces this morning that the FBI had uncovered a bribery.
We believe we should preserve our history, not tear it down. Now they're even trying to destroy statues of Christopher Columbus. What's next?
Don't know if that was impromptu or not, but that from the speech last night for the Conservative Heritage Foundation in Washington, the president touching on taxes, but a lot of cultural issues, and the crowd loved it. Brad Blakeman, former Deputy Assistant President George W. Bush, David Goodfriend, former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton. Gentlemen, good day to both of you.
Morning. Thanks,
Brad,
Bill.
he is the anti-PC president. And you saw this coming, whether it was the primary season or the general election, and now he had his chance last night to bring us back to the NFL. And as you heard just there, Merry Christmas.
Right. And while the left seeks to destroy the traditional values of America, Donald Trump is speaking up. It's not okay to kneel for the national anthem in a football game. It's not correct or right for the mob to rule in taking down statues. Our nation was founded by imperfect people seeking a more perfect union. That you can be found in the preamble to our Constitution. We shouldn't be looking to rewrite or whitewash or expel history. We should learn from history, and we should embrace our values.
Yeah. David, how effective is this when you consider the mayor of New York City is now considering taking down the Christopher Columbus statue? Don't know if he's going to do it, but they're talking about it.
Well, I, of course, disagree with my friend Brad Blakeman that we progressives are somehow against American culture. I love the First Amendment, and I think local communities and states should have the freedom to choose whatever they put in their public places. But I find what you asked me a very specific question, Bill, and I want to make sure I answer it.
Go ahead.
Is this working? Well, let's look at the background. On your screen right now, you see President Trump, and behind him is the Heritage Foundation logo. And what was he doing last night? He was talking to conservatives about tax reform. We know, you just reported this a few minutes ago on Fox News, there are divisions among conservatives about whether or not deficits should matter. Should tax cuts be paid for? It's very controversial. The one thing that Donald Trump could say last night to that crowd that would get a cheer is, let's say, Merry Christmas. He's trying to divert attention away from his failures to unify his own party and making the point that, hey, this is something we can all agree on.
You're making the case if you don't get the legislation passed, I'm still communicating to people that I know where your head is and I know where your heart is. That's the case you're making.
I'm saying that Donald Trump has 35 to 39% approval rating. He's sticking with his base. He's not doing anything to expand that base. But even within the Republican Party, he's having trouble keeping his troops in line. This is one way he tries to throw red meat to the crowd and say, hey, we can all agree on this. Let's say Merry Christmas.
Okay.
But show me how many jobs that creates. Show me how many taxes that cuts. Show me where the results are.
And the numbers, the results are very important. You're right about that. Brad, respond to that in a moment here. But first, I mentioned Merry Christmas. Here was the clip on that from last night.
You're going to be saying Merry Christmas again, okay? You're going to say Merry Christmas. We're going to say it again. It's happening already. You know it. You know it's happening again.
Yeah, Brad, also on the NFL, this tweet from this morning. The NFL has decided that it will not force players to stand for the playing of our national anthem. Total disrespect for our great country. Brad, come back to David's point and respond to that.
Well, first of all, David, he did talk about tax reform. And yes, tax reform is a generational change. We haven't had tax reform since Ronald Reagan, 31 years. So, yeah, you're going to have division within our party about it. We're certainly not getting the kind of help we should from Democrats. Unleashing the power of the individual is not in the Democratic playbook. They want us to send money to the government to spend for us. And what Donald Trump is saying, put more money in the American pocket and let us do our own business. And by the way, you asked where the jobs are. We're almost at full unemployment. Look at the stock market in anticipation of what Trump is talking about with this generational change to the tax code and tax rates. We're going to unleash the power of the velocity of money changing hands within the population, not the government spending for us. So I disagree with you. We're going to be able to get tax reform with or without Democrats. It would be nice to have them.
I have 15 seconds, David, but the original question was, he is the anti-PC president.
Right.
How far does that take him?
I think it gives him great allegiance from his base. I think he has failed so far in his presidency to expand his popularity beyond his base. We'll see how that plays out with tax reform and the midterm elections.
David, thank you. Brad, thank you. Gentlemen, civil. Wow.
We're friends, Bill. We're friends.
It must be Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, gentlemen. Here's Sandra.
Very good. All right, Congressman Trey Gowdy now says he wants to see James Comey back on Capitol Hill, answering questions as new details come to light about the Clinton email investigation.
We're going to take him up on his offer. We are going to talk to his present and former colleagues. May the 2nd is when these memos, these heavily redacted memos, appear where they are discussing internally whether or not to make a charging decision.
Did the former FBI director try to protect the presidential candidate? President Trump thinks so. We'll ask former Congressman Jason Chaffetz what he thinks. Plus, President Trump says ISIS is on the run. U.S.-backed forces are driving militants out of their stronghold in Syria.
This open Senate seat, it is neck and neck in our newest Fox poll, showing a very close race. Republican Roy Moore, Democrat Doug Jones fighting to fill the seat vacated by AG Jeff Sessions. The two right now are tied at 42-42. Surprising shift. Deep red state. President Trump won Alabama by 28 points. So keep an eye on that right now. If the Democrats were to take that seat,
it's a very competitive, tight race.
That would be an earthquake if that were to happen. So we'll keep an eye on it.
All right. President Trump taking credit for the military success against ISIS. U.S.-backed forces in Syria are in the process of driving jihadists out of their self-proclaimed capital in Raqqa. Trump says the campaign against ISIS turned a corner after he took office.
I totally changed rules of engagement. I totally changed our military. I totally changed the attitudes of the military, and they have done a fantastic job. Yeah, ISIS is now giving up. They're giving up. They're raising their hands. They're walking off. Nobody's ever seen that before.
Michael Waltz, a former Green Beret commander and counterterrorism advisor. He's also a Fox News contributor. Thank you for coming on with us.
Hey, Sandra.
You know, this is getting a lot of attention. The president is taking credit for what we are seeing ISIS fighters leaving en masse. Is it fair for the president to take that credit, saying he has changed the military?
Well, I think the point that a lot of his critics are making is that the strategy was essentially the one set under the Obama administration. I think to some degree that is true, that we had small groups of U.S. forces working through local indigenous forces that were doing most of the fighting. But I think the president does deserve a lot of credit for taking the handcuffs off of our military. So it was really how we executed that strategy where President Trump really made a difference in that he lifted the overly restrictive ROE. He allowed the military to back away from these troop caps that were put in place by the Obama administration. And he allowed our forces to embed down at a more tactical level where they could make more of a difference in terms of helping with artillery and air support and all of those other pieces. So I think in that sense, he absolutely deserves credit. And he allowed our military to do the job that they were sent there to do out in the field.
You know, you look at the updates that we're getting from the Pentagon on this, and I'm hoping you can shed some more light on the situation there. But ISIS fighters, they're saying, have begun surrendering en masse. 87% of the total territory in Iraq and Syria that ISIS once held has been liberated, although they're warning that they expect that there will be remnants of ISIS in the city, about 100 of them. If you could add to that for us and paint the picture, what does it look like on the ground there?
So ISIS as a state, as they like to call themselves, the Islamic State that holds territory, is essentially defeated. 90% of its territory has been reclaimed. But we do expect to see it return to a kind of an insurgency mode where it's launching guerrilla-style attacks. So while it's defeated as a state, it is not defeated as a movement. And that, you know, in that regard, we have to keep up the pressure. You know, the other piece, though, is defeating them militarily, I think, sadly, was the easy part. Now it's how do we win the peace? And you have four-dimensional chess going on in Syria and Iraq in the sense of you've got the Syrian Kurds who are opposed to the Turks. You have al-Qaeda that is ascendant. Al-Qaeda is filling the void of what ISIS has left. You have Iran. You have Iranian troops actually on the ground. You have Hezbollah. You have the Syrian army. You have the Russians. You know, you have various folks that the Gulf states are backing, and then, of course, the ones that we are working with. And that's just in Syria. Across the border, as we've seen over the last few days, you have Iranian-backed militias now turning on the Iraqi Kurds. And where is the Iraqi government there? So right now, the U.S. has a position of neutrality as all of this is swirling around. But I don't think that's going to be sufficient in the long run, and we need a long-term strategy in place to win the peace.
Yeah. But for now, the president says ISIS is on the run.
Well, he's right.
Waltz, thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
9:29, awaiting the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. He will be in the center seat fielding tough questions now from the Senate Judiciary Committee. Jim Comey's handling of the Clinton email investigation expected to be front and center for Republicans. We'll take you there live the moment that gets underway in Washington.
We will indeed. Plus, President Trump says his tax plan will bring new jobs and put more money in each American family's pocket. Will Republicans get this passed? That's next.
Our tax plan will ensure that companies stay in America, grow in America, and hire in America.
You got it. Look at this now. 114 points at the open for the Dow 30.
Whoa.
We touched on Dow 23,000 yesterday. It tried to close above that, but did not quite get there. It came about 3 points shy.
I don't know. Are we talking 24,000 next? I mean, it's like 23's. We're blowing through there.
You know, since we started a little dance here on America's Newsroom, Sandra, you know, I always watch this thing and I'm like, well, look at that. I can't believe we're at Dow 23,000 when we just finished talking about Dow 22,000. And you said, with your business background, what does it really matter? And to me, psychologically, that matters a lot. But from a financial standpoint, why would it not matter?
Well, when the Dow is that rich, that expensive, a 100-point gain is like nothing. You know, I mean, it's a small percentage move now. When the Dow was at 10,000, a 100-point gain was something.
True.
So now we're looking at 1,000-point gains to really have a big impact.
If you go back to the election, we're about 18,000 on the Dow, right? You're up 5,000 points.
Up 26%.
In 10 months? Wow. I hope you're invested, America, because this is a bull market you may not see again.
I think that is it. Fear of missing out. People are buying that market because I think it's going to keep going up.
9:34. Here we go.
Tax reform. Speaking of the markets, gaining momentum with more Republicans getting behind a crucial Senate budget resolution that would start getting the ball rolling. John McCain announcing his support. But Rand Paul still a holdout, despite President Trump's pitch to conservatives last night, laying out exactly how his plan will help everyday Americans.
Our tax plan will ensure that companies stay in America, grow in America, and hire in America. We will lift our people from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to total, beautiful prosperity.
Beautiful prosperity. Tony Sayegh, Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs at the Treasury Department. Tony, it's wonderful to see you. You know, we haven't had a chance to really catch up recently, so it is good to see you, but you're inside the Treasury Department now. Can you tell us exactly how this plan, as the president just laid out, will lift people out of welfare and out of poverty?
Well, Sandra, it's great to see you, too, and congratulations for your new assignment, getting to spend your mornings with Bill Hemmer. Very exciting for everybody involved, I'm sure.
It's a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift. Give him my best. So, look, in the last 8 years, we have had anemic economic growth in this country of 1.8%. That's been the worst period of growth since the Great Depression. Companies have not gotten hurt by that. Corporate profits are at record highs, 11% up in that time. You know what's been low is wage growth, are the pay raises workers need. And the large economic benefit has been really limited and concentrated to a very few at the top. So what the president is suggesting is by changing on the business side our corporate tax rate, which is the highest in the developed world, we know workers will benefit because they're the ones, according to a lot of our studies, who bear this vast majority of the tax burden of high corporate taxes, 70% to 80%, depending on which study you look at. So when we change that tax rate, we lower it to 20%. When we get rid of this worldwide system that encourages American companies to defer their profits offshore in the trillions, and we change it to a more American model.
And that's when everybody gets that pay raise that the White House keeps talking about.
That's the
Is that truly,
part.
on average, for the average American household, $4,000 annually that families will benefit?
$4,000 to $9,000 once this tax plan is fully, obviously, operational, Sandra, which is why, by the way, when we talk about tax reform and getting it done this year, we're not just talking about meeting some sort of arbitrary deadline. We're talking about trying to get the economic benefit of our plan, which economists from across the spectrum, from business people, from manufacturing to home building have said are very good for the economy. The market is largely reacting to the anticipation of our tax reform.
So let's talk about that for a second.
That's what's going to get us the most economic benefit quickly, is getting it done this year.
Obviously, we were just chatting about the stock market. It opened 7 minutes ago. It is surging over 100 points out of the gate. It's topping 23,000. This is a new record high. Does the Treasury Department, do you look at this stock market, and is there any concern that there's too much optimism out there of this tax reform, these tax cuts actually getting done?
Well, look, I think that largely the market sees what we're doing, frankly, on regulatory relief. They see what we're doing on renegotiating trade agreements, and they see what we're trying to do with tax reform, and that's being met with a lot of optimism. In fact, the National Association of Manufacturers put out an outlook about 2 weeks ago that showed over 93% of their members were more optimistic as far as their outlook on the economy. We understand the optimism is out there, which is why the urgency to get tax reform done, to substantiate it, is at such a high level.
But Tony, address those like Rand Paul, who have issues with this plan, who say, you know what, I'm in this for the middle class. I want tax cuts for everyone. His concern is that not everyone in the middle class will actually see their taxes go down. Will they?
Well, look, absolutely, that's the focus of what we're trying to do. We have a unified framework that has prioritized, and it makes it very clear, Sandra, that we want to see a major middle-class tax cut. The details are being worked out through the two tax writing committees, Ways and Means in the House, Finance in the Senate. We are going to give the middle class a major tax cut by lowering their rates, expanding the child tax credit, getting that pay raise we're talking about, doubling the standard deduction, so the first $24,000 of a family's income is tax-free. And again, making their taxes simpler, which, by the way, does save time and money for a lot of taxpayers. There's a lot we're trying to do to ensure that we have a major middle-class tax cut. And I think Senator Paul understands that and has been working and talking with the president about trying to support us on tax reform.
So the president takes a lot of credit for this stock market rally. Do you give him a lot of credit for this?
And look, there is absolutely no doubt that the markets, that businesses from across the spectrum, not just the market, see what the president is trying to do with his agenda as far as job creation, wage growth, economic growth, reinvestment of trillions of dollars into this country, capital improvement. That is all being met very well across the financial sectors.
It was wonderful to see you, Tony.
Awesome to be with you both. Thank you so much, Sandra.
All right, thanks for coming on.
It's a heavy lift. Oh, my.
Did I say that out loud?
That's okay. I can take it. New York Yankees strike again, and what a comeback in the Bronx last night. Check it out.
There goes Gregorius. Yankees lead. Into the gap, and 2 runs are going to score. Judge, Gregorius, Sanchez delivers.
Wow, Houston had this game, too. Yankee catcher Gary Sanchez capped it off with a big comeback by the Yankees. Down 4-2, 8th inning at home. Aaron Judge, the rookie, started the inning with a game-tying double. Yankees come from behind, 6-4 final. Series now tied at 2. Game 5 is this afternoon. That was a bomb, by the way, too. Aaron Judge.
Do you want to know what I think? I think I need to stay up later because I'm missing all this excitement.
That's part of the shift here. You have to get used to it, or you can DVR it. But listen, heartbreaker for Houston, but we'll see what we get in Game 5 this afternoon coming up. Cubs trail the Dodgers 3-0.
Thanks for that update.
Sorry, kid. Can't help.
All right. Meanwhile, just over 1 year ago, former FBI Director Jim Comey said he exonerated Hillary Clinton after completing the email investigation.
If colleagues of ours believe I am lying about when I made this decision, please urge them to contact me privately so we can have a conversation about this.
Well, Congressman Trey Gowdy says he plans to take Comey up on that offer as new evidence surfaces that Comey actually cleared Hillary Clinton months before finishing his investigation.
Why would that be, right? Good question. Former UN ambassador